In this video, the term system does not refer to any specific political, cultural, or religious system. Instead, it refers to fundamental factors that influence us, causing various behaviors and mental states such as anger and anxiety. It's about dependence on fleeting ideas and the impact of the environment around us. When considering the human condition, we realize that most of us are entirely governed by the external world. When we obtain what we desire from that world, we feel happy. But when we lose it, sadness immediately overwhelms us. Praise from others uplifts our spirits, while their disapproval causes us distress. The more we crave something, the more willing we are to trade everything to obtain it. And the more we oppose something, the higher price we're willing to pay to avoid it. These chains of desires and aversions, loves and hatreds, likes and dislikes, make us vulnerable, susceptible to shame and blame, as well as the allure of large corporations, political parties, religions, and other external forces seeking to exploit us. And thus, the world ruling over us is like a person riding a donkey with a carrot on a stick, which most of us pursue from birth to death, like obedient livestock. But what if we reject the carrot? What if we choose to break free from this cycle? The ancient philosophy of Stoicism aims to achieve freedom from the ever-changing environment, helping us find inner peace and control. However, we don't achieve freedom from the system by destroying the surrounding environment, for the external world is not at fault here. The universe operates in its own way. And while we may influence it to some extent, we cannot control it entirely. Just as the sun, rain, and wind affect the harvest of the farmer, the external world imposes conditions upon us that are unavoidable. These conditions themselves are not the system. Our enslavement to them is the system. Why do the waves of fate easily sweep us away like that? Why can the slightest misfortune or a bit of luck turn our emotions into puppets dancing on strings? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus astutely said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." For example, death itself is not frightening. If it were, Socrates would surely have been afraid of it. The real terror lies in our perception of death, that it is truly dreadful. So, when we are obstructed, confused, or suffering, let us not blame others, but rather blame ourselves for adhering to our own mistaken principles. This is a profound lesson from the philosophy of Epictetus. The system continues to operate as long as we continue to feed it with fuel. The more we view the tragedies and blessings in natural events beyond our control, the more we allow fate to determine our emotions. Fortunately, Stoicism provides us with the wisdom to escape this system. Below are 7 Stoic ideas that can help us replace a lifestyle that is highly susceptible to harm, uncertainty, and frequent storms with one that enjoys freedom and peace. 1. Always remain optimistic no matter what happens. How much time has passed in hopes that all good things will come and pains will never arise? How many hours have been spent in tears because the future is not as we dreamed? Humans have become warriors in the battle with destiny, and then have to endure the inevitable pain from those encounters. Our confrontation with uncertainty is a significant challenge, but it's also an opportunity to go further. There have been many promises about the future, but the reality is nothing makes us completely safe, protected, and exempt from difficulties. By becoming prisoners of desire and worry, we try to deceive fate, creating an environment in which we hope to avoid unwanted outcomes. No matter how hard we try to seal off every door of life, the reality remains that we cannot control every aspect of it. No matter how much time, effort, and money we invest in protecting ourselves, fate will still prevail. Therefore, the only way to escape the constraints of the system is to accept everything that happens, rather than futilely struggling against the inevitable. By doing so, we minimize the possibility of being exploited by fear and feel less anxious when facing unfortunate events. As Seneca once said, "So why should we be angry? Why should we lament? We have prepared for our fate. Let nature treat our bodies as it wishes. Let us be cheerful no matter what happens, and firmly reflect that not everything we possess will be lost." 2. Pay little attention to fame. The Stoics believed that reputation is merely indifferent preference. It may come and go, but you don't need to rely on it to find happiness. Furthermore, like many other things in life, reputation ultimately lies beyond our control. There are those who spend a lifetime building a good reputation for themselves, only to realize that it can be destroyed by a minor mistake. Some people, despite initially living in humble social positions, are suddenly esteemed and admired randomly. This makes us realize that fame can change like the wind. When we are too concerned with maintaining prestigious status, we easily become dependent on others' evaluations, which are not always reliable. Moreover, if we care too much about others' opinions, we are prone to being controlled, manipulated, and becoming slaves to the environment around us. Epictetus asserts that pursuing fame should not be the top priority, as it can affect our spirit. Instead, if necessary, we should be willing to accept obstacles such as shame, blame, exclusion, and ridicule, as long as it helps us achieve peace and spiritual freedom. This freedom lies within our control, unaffected or dependent on others' opinions. 3. Learn to be patient. When faced with undesirable situations, we often wish to escape them immediately. However, reality often doesn't work that way. Instead, we tend to complain, lament, and feel negative about the situation, believing that we deserve a better opportunity. However, in the end, we gain nothing from this. And sometimes the best way to deal with a situation is to accept it. How many times have we lost our way on the path, violated ethical principles, and compromised our own values just because of fear of pain? Pain can be a powerful weapon, causing good people to do evil or miss opportunities to do good. In such cases, pain becomes a tool of control, and in avoiding it, we fall into the trap of those trying to manipulate us. Therefore, we are willing to trade freedom to alleviate some pain and discomfort. If enduring painful situations feels like a challenge, we can turn to Marcus Aurelius. His meditations teach us that endurance is not necessarily bad. Endurance can bring purpose, something beneficial to us, even if its consequence is death. I quote, "Everything in life can be accepted or not. If it can be accepted, accept it. Do not complain. If it cannot be accepted, then stop complaining. Your destruction also means its end." Remember, you can accept anything that your mind can accept by considering it as a benefit for you to do so, for your benefit, or in your essence. This approach can be compared to Albert Camus' perspective on the Greek mythological figure Sisyphus. Sisyphus is condemned to endlessly push a boulder up a hill by the gods. The only liberation for him is to fully accept and embrace his fate, making his punishment no longer a punishment. 4. Relax your connection with people. The deep bond with others can lead to dire consequences. This implies that the possibility of losing them begins to dominate our lives. to the extent that every action becomes a desperate attempt to avoid an inevitable outcome, the separation between us and those we care deeply about. The love story between Padme and Anakin in the Star Wars prequel is truly a clear testament to the dangers of unhealthy attachments and how they open the door to the domination and control of dark forces. Palpatine exploited Anakin's fear of losing Padme to lure him into a trap, resulting in a series of dreadful consequences. If Anakin could love not based on suspicion, fear, and coercion, but instead on freedom, trust, and independence, then the dark side would not be able to control him. Epictetus delivers a stern yet powerful message about how we should approach relationships and the things we hold dear. He encourages us to view them realistically, as things easily breakable or lost from the outset. He notes, for instance, that if you like a particular cup, remember that you may only like the cups you have chosen. This highlights the necessity of accepting uncertainty and change in life. So if the cup breaks, you won't be surprised. If you kiss your children or spouse, remember that you are only loving a human being. So if one of them departs, you won't be surprised or heartbroken. This underscores the importance of keeping your mind calm and patient in every situation, regardless of any changes or losses. 5. Give up material possessions. There's a reason why people get caught up in the daily grind, spending hours on end doing work they don't enjoy, being forced into things they don't want, and going through day after day feeling exhausted. We're willing to sacrifice our precious time and energy in exchange for material possessions and conveniences. Society often regards happiness as conditional, depending on external factors such as money, social status, friends, and living conditions. We often feel unhappy when we don't achieve these things. But are these goals worth pursuing? They are merely part of the landscape of fate and fortune that we live in. So, they will tease and toy with us like children's playthings, simply because we have chosen to struggle against things we can never conquer. In his letter to Lucilius titled, On True and False Wealth, Seneca questions the true value of all material possessions we pursue, such as gold-plated couches and furniture adorned with precious stones. Does that possession truly make us happy? Or is it just to show the world that we live a lavish life? Seneca goes further to emphasize that our happiness should not depend on any external material, from wealth like gold and silver to simple things like water and porridge. In this way, we become independent of any external circumstances, no matter how abundant they may be. Seneca argues that it's not those whom fortune grants some power, but those over whom she has no power at all, who can truly enjoy freedom. Then he recalls the words of Master Attalus, and I quote, "If you meditate on this regularly, you will strive not only to appear happy, but to be truly happy, and even to seem happy to yourself rather than to others." 6. Decide how we will react. A common reaction when provoked, insulted, or attempted to be harmed is to respond with anger and hostility. This indicates that the system has empowered others to control our emotions, making us feel bad about ourselves when their actions affect us. However, like seeking good reputation, we should not attach our happiness to the actions of others. The cruel, the harmful, the arrogant, the challengers, they radiate their toxicity like dark clouds, raining down upon us with malicious intent, hoping that we will confront their anger. However, there is a choice, as Viktor Frankl wrote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. Our response is where our growth and freedom lie. If we respond to these individuals with anger, fear, and hostility, We have relinquished part of our emotional power to them. However, if we choose to respond with indifference, they merely pollute the space around us without harming our hearts and spirits. Therefore, they will not affect our freedom and inner peace. The important lesson this conveys is that we only become slaves when we voluntarily choose to or fail to recognize that we have the choice to be free. 7. Accept the departure. Some believe that the fear of death is the root of all fears, and like the fear of pain, the fear of death can influence how we live. According to the philosophy of Stoics, they argue that a life built on the foundation of ethics is much more valuable than merely focusing on the prolongation of life. We can say that life is happening now, not after. However, if we live in fear of death, ultimately, we only live to avoid it, rather than truly enjoying and making the most of every moment of life. When we live to avoid death, we are constantly fleeing from minor situations containing the greatest danger and seeking illusory safety, instead of facing the challenges and real experiences of life. We become fearful sheep, following anyone promising a change in life. However, no one can free us from the inevitability of life, the decay of what we consider ourselves, and the return of our bodies to nature. Fear of death is futile, even dangerous, as it can prevent us from living courageously and ethically. But death, according to Marcus Aurelius's reasoning, is an inevitable part of nature. It's like maturity, old age, and the first gray hairs. Everything comes and goes, exists, and passes away. So, this is how a wise person should face death. Not indifferent, not impatient, not disdainful, but simply acknowledging it as a natural part of human life. Now, imagine that the child is about to emerge from the mother's womb. That is how you should await the moment when your soul will escape from its confinement.